Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a build guide for all of the followers. So it's going to be the best build guide for every single one of the followers, whether you want to run the Enchantress, the Scoundrel, or the Templar for the upcoming season. So first off, let's go ahead and go over what the big changes are going to be for Season 23's new update for the follower system, and also patch 2.7, as this will be going into the main game, not only just with the new update for the season. So what it comes down to really quick, and I'll sum it up, is we have this new system called Emanate. What that means is you can actually equip an item on your follower and you get the ability of that as well. So it's really cool. It's almost like an extra Kanai's cube. So it's very nice for anyone that is doing solo play, or if you happen to be running the Ashira set, it technically can work for team play, but for the most part, we get access to just the Nemesis bracers and the Flavor of Time being the most important ones. But they've also granted the followers a completely new rework on a bunch of the skills, which actually makes them a lot more powerful than just adding the Emanate ability. But I do want to mention really quickly that there's no way that you're going to be able to get a follower that actually deals damage. Even though they've updated it to get a bunch of different weapons and armor slots, unfortunately, it still doesn't make them viable enough to actually be powerful enough to actually kill content. So let's get that out of the way real quick. And then on top of that, in case you guys want to see everything that can be what's called emanated, I'll list it down below, but pretty much we're going to be going over what would be considered the best for most builds. There might be some obscure ZDPS that wants to do something really weird, but for the most part, there's going to be the best build guide for every single one of them. Now, previously, everyone ran the Templar, right? That was the go-to follower to go ahead and run. However, now it is actually different. The Templar is actually going to be the least favorite for most classes. The most important one to factor in which one that you choose is actually going to be, do you need cooldown or do you want more damage? So if you want as much cooldown as possible, the Enchantress can grant you up to 10% additional cooldown reduction, which is very important for certain builds to keep up like their ultimate ability or just be able to utilize certain skills a little bit more frequently. So if you want as much cooldown as possible, you're going to go with the Enchantress. Now, it goes up to 10% for that cooldown, and how do you reach that number? Any number in green can be varied by the amount of main stat that the follower has. This is a newer system here. So basically what it comes down to is you want at least 25,000 of the main stat. So what that means is for the Enchantress, you want to go ahead and have as much intelligence as possible. For the Scoundrel, that would be dexterity, and for the Templar, that is strength. Minimum 25,000, so you can actually access the maxed variant of all of the skills, and the number in green will be at its maximum. So that's what you're really trying to shoot for. That's why in every single piece of gear, you're seeing that in this instance over here, we have the topazes. But in addition to that, there are some changes with the follower system that kind of messes with these skills and makes them, I would say, overall much better for most circumstances. But that's like the big change over here. So let's go ahead and go over the Enchantress first, because I would say she's definitely going to be the most popular one to start off with, because again, you get that cooldown reduction. But with the Scoundrel, the big draw for him, like the reason why you would want to pick him, is because he has Knight's Veil. Now, Knight's Veil over here makes it so he will spawn a cloud that covers an area, and all your attacks in there will be guaranteed critical hits. This is actually pretty big for a lot of different builds, so that's what you want to try to focus in on. Another important thing is that cooldown does not scale with them, so don't try to get cooldown on the pieces of gear. It doesn't work, with the one exception of the Templar, which we'll get into when we go over him. But you basically are going to be using most of the same pieces of gear on most of them, but I'll go over what's important and what you should think about swapping in case your build needs to basically focus in on more of a timed window for certain crowd control effects. So first off, as far as the Enchantress goes, we want to scale attack speed so we can proc our Thunder Fury if we want to. Again, some builds may want to go ahead and CC at very specific intervals for, again, certain playstyles. But for the most part, we're just getting a lot of attack speed on our gear so we can get the ability to, you know, slow down the enemy and possibly make them take more damage, or it's just for survivability as well. But don't really mind too much on what the things roll on the pieces of gear, other than like Mempo Twilight will always roll with attack speed. You can also throw a ruby in the helm so you get more XP. And then on top of that, we've got the homing pads. Now these are basically the only ones that actually give you an effect in the game. The other ones grant you the ability so you don't have to repair your items, but that's not going to affect gameplay. The homing pad just makes it so you can actually take less damage. If you have to stand in something that's going to make you take massive amount of damage, hey, you can activate this and it'll actually technically work in actual gameplay. But then we're getting the Talrasha's armor for attack speed. It really doesn't matter too much unless you're really trying to min-max, but that's the point of the video, going over the best things. In the amulet slot, for like 99% of the builds, it's going to be Flavor of Time. You can get away if you're doing speed runs with the S of Johan, which is this amulet over here, to group up those enemies if you're doing like speed T16s. But that's going to be in basically every build. You do definitely want to get attack speed if you do want to favor getting, again, those procs or whatever weapon that you have. And then for the bracers, every single one is going to be Nemesis bracers. Not really too many options here, unfortunately. There is like the bracers for gold, but that doesn't matter. Everyone's going to be running Nemesis. And then we have the Cane set over here for increased attack speed, as well as experience, which can be nice. And then we have the Witching Hour for more attack speed. And then we have Unity, and we also have Oculus Ring. Another option would be the Royal Ring of Grandeur, so you can actually get the other benefit of the canes. And that's more for speeds, which we'll get into in a second, but it is an option for some people to maybe think about if you maybe don't want to make use of, let's say, Unity, because you'll always want to use Oculus Ring. There's no downsides to this. It's going to be in pretty much every build. And then the boots, the Ice Climbers, will grant yourself immunity to freeze and immobilize effects, which is kind of nice. And then if you want to push, you definitely need to run the Equip Follower Cannot Die, Trinket, Focus, Templar, Relic, whatever it is. You have to equip them with the Follower Cannot Die one on every single one. With the exception of if you want to do like T16 speeds, and as long as you have enough survivability, they can actually survive in T16s, but if you're doing like very high GRs, they're just going to die anyway, so you have to use this one. Unfortunately, it's still the best in slot, which is unfortunate because I really wanted to use the cooldown reduction one where they get all the skills, but you can't do it at the higher GRs. Anyways, for the Enchantress, this is what we're going to be utilizing for the skills. Now keep in mind, you can definitely swap these, but this is what I would recommend for most players. Temporal Pulse will actually slow down the enemies. Again, don't mind the damage because it's irrelevant. Then with the Harmony over here, we can get up to 10% cooldown reduction. And again, remember, you want 25k in main stat to access that. And then we have the Powered Shield, which reduces the damage from the range attacks. But there's also one over here where you can make it so they will take more damage. Again, depending on your build and, you know, where you want them in max. This one's kind of optional here. And then you can run Focus Mind to actually grant yourself extra attack speed, or you can run Fate's Lasp. So with this over here, you will be able to have a cheat death. This is also something that is newer to Season 23 or Patch 2.7, which allows you to, again, have a cheat death on every single one of the followers. Now going into the Scoundrel over here, you'll notice that there are a few differences here. Now this one doesn't have a bunch of the attack speed. Again, it depends on the way that you want to play. Most people will probably favor the attack speed. So if you want to get Talrasha's, by all means, it's not that bad. Again, you got to meet that 25k main stat threshold, but pretty much everything is going to be the same all across the board on it. But this one doesn't have attack speed. This would be if, like, let's say you don't want the character to be able to proc some type of an effect because you want to slow them down manually for timing windows. Yeah, pretty much the same across the board. The only difference would be I gotta go over the skills. Now, just like a lot of Diablo builds, sometimes you don't even want to take a skill on the follower, as in you just don't select one ever. The only way to unselect a skill is by making a new character, so do not select the first one if you don't want that window where they're going to be like slowed down. That's something very important to mention. But as far as the passives go, you have the extra crit with Anatomy over here, and with the piercing shot that will actually make them take increased damage. And then you can have a cheat death if you want to, but that defeats the purpose of running the Scoundrel basically completely. Knight's Veil is way, way, way better. So what it does is it makes that cloud guaranteed crits. This could be absolutely amazing and game changing, as basically doubling your crit chance. Most builds at the end of the game will have like basically 50% crit. So this is actually a huge DPS boost, and that would be the main reason, again, why you would take the Scoundrel. Now for the Templar, I mentioned there's something different here. So again, some of these, they can be swapped in and out. Like, you don't feel like you have to run the Gloves of Worship if you want to push. It's just, some of these are just made as like reference notes here for myself. But the Scoundrel specifically can benefit off of cooldown reduction. So you'll see that there is a diamond in the helm instead of a ruby. This will actually only work with the heal ability that has a cooldown. For whatever reason, this apparently works. You know, big shout outs to Wudijo for all these builds, as well as that info, as I started running cooldown on all my pieces of gear, wondering why it didn't work. So unfortunately, cooldown does not work on the classes except for the Templar with the heal ability, which this ability is actually quite nice. You take a big hit, Templar just heals you up. So that's why you see like the Vigilante belt, which will always roll with that cooldown reduction. That would be like the only exception here, and you throw a diamond in the helm of Learch's Crown, again, to get that extra cooldown reduction specifically for this. And on top of that, if you want to run the Captain Crimson set, that will also reduce the cooldown, so that's kind of nice. Nothing in particular here that's super important that would be different from the other classes, although you can run the Wall of Man, or you can run the other shield that can grant you extra stun potential. But for the most part, it's basically the same as we've always ran the Templar. But pretty much people running heal, loyalty for the regen, and then you can run onslaught for them to take increased damage. And on top of that, you can either run the cheat death or you can run the inspire. Again, it's kind of up to you on what you want, depending on what build you are playing and what you actually need for your build. But of course, we got to go over the speed builds. So these are going to be the best builds overall for like greater rift pushings. Now, if you want to do speed builds, there's going to be a different build here, as it's going to really help out. Now, this is only for people that are interested in doing T16 solos, which there are people that want to do that. Again, sometimes you just don't want to deal with people, and I get it. So this would be that kind of like the ideal speed run build for this. So once you get enough main stat and you are able to throw in the purple gem so you can get extra life per hit on your follower, this will make it so they have a better chance to survive. Now, if you want to make it so they can never die, that's fine too, but if you want to, you can make it so they gain access to all of the skills, which can be kind of nice. It just buffs you a little bit, but this is the only circumstance where you'd be able to actually utilize it, is just doing speed T16s. Again, if you want to do GRs, you're gonna have to run the one where they can't die. But the main difference with this is you want to run the Adverse Band and the Royal Ring of Grandeur. And also you can run the legendary gems, the Mutilation Guard, as well as the Esoteric Alteration, which will give them extra survivability. So that can be kind of nice if you want them to survive and you don't want to run the thing where it makes it so they can't die. You can also swap out the Amulet and run the S of Johann instead of the Flavor of Time, but you still definitely want the Nemesis Bracers. This is more conditional to very specific builds. If you want to group up things and you're one-shotting things, again, if you're doing T16, then you might not need the Pylon. But both of them are definitely nice to have. It's the only real variation here. But we're running the Sages set so we can double the amount of Death's Breath that do drop, as Royal Ring of Grandeur will be working with them. And then on top of that, we will also be utilizing the Kane's 3-piece set where a Greater Rift Keystone drops, there's a 25% chance that an extra one will drop, and that will emanate. So those are the two differences over here that, you know, if you're playing, you know, GRs, well, they're not going to drop a Greater Rift Stone unless you're doing regular rifts, right? And then same thing with the Death's Breath, as it won't drop because nothing drops in a GR until the very end anyways. So on top of that, we can have access to the gold skin, which makes it so the enemies will actually drop gold when we hit them, and that will be able to be emanated with the Adverse Band, which each time you pick up gold, you get to increase your gold and health pickup radius, and that can tactically be a little bit faster. And then it just matters for just picking out mostly the globes for certain builds that can make use out of it, and it's just something else that you can run. But it's just, again, this one's kind of more so for people that want to do speed runs, and I would not recommend this for GR pushings unless you happen to have some really crazy build idea. But obviously with the ability to equip everything, and don't feel like you have to run the Enchantress, but most people would probably prefer the Enchantress just for speed, just so you have the cooldown to have like your mobility or whatever min-max just a little bit more. And I will include all these down below, and once again, big shout outs to Wudijo for building most of these. This one I actually built over here, it's heavily modified, but for the most part, these are basically min-max. There's really no room for improvement on these builds for the followers, but if they do add more things to the Emanate system, I will definitely update you guys. And also link Wudijo down below. He's another great Diablo content creator. That's how I learned about the Templar thing, because I was started getting, like I said, cooldown reduction to everything, and it just doesn't work. So only with Templar do you want cooldown reduction for him, but this is what you're going to be looking for to equip on your follower. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you are new here and do want to see more Diablo content, we've uploaded, in fact, you guys are seeing gameplay of the Firebird Wizard over here, which will be definitely very, very powerful going into Season 23 or Patch 2.7 when it does come out. But if you're new, subscribe, turn that bell, and you'll see a lot more Diablo content coming your way very soon. But take care, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comment section below, as I will be pinning the gameplay and stuff of a lot of the other things that are going to be coming out in Season 23. But take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.